All right, so could you tell me a little bit about who you are and what it is you do and how specifically you got into this world of working with conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists?
Yeah, sure. It was a long and improbable journey. So, by training, I'm an anthropologist, and I spent many years studying weird communities from street kids to people online who conjure imaginary friends and hear voices but tell us they're not crazy. And then I got a job about 10 years ago as a professor in a psychiatry department, in an interdisciplinary psychiatry department. So I did a bit of retraining in cognitive science, and then I retrained as a clinician. And most of my research for the past 10 years has been on the impact of the internet and social media. So, first on cognition, well being, and mental health, but mostly on social relations. So, I became really interested in, and I should say, a little worried about how it seemed really difficult for people to have dialogue and conversations, and how there was all this social polarization and more people appeared to live in radically different worlds and see the world in very different ways. During the pandemic, I had the great fortune to be invited to a new clinical and research intervention team, uh, working with people who are at risk of ideologically motivated extremism. So I've been working in the field of CVE, countering violent extremism, now for the past 10 years. So we do research, we do outreach, training, but we also do clinical work. We also see people who are identified as being, at risk of ideologically motivated violence, and we have developed this model uh, to try to help rehabilitate people who, are very excluded from society.
So that's quite the journey. And could you tell me a bit about that work that you do now?
Well, so maybe a bit of a disclaimer because for confidentiality reasons, there's a lot of things I can't say, about my clinical work, nothing that, that could identify, sort of a vulnerable person. Fortunately, because we're also a research team, we've published a lot of papers on the epidemiology of conspiracy theories, on risk and protective factors. So who's at risk, what drives people to violent extremism. And we've also published some papers on the model that our team has developed in Quebec to rehabilitate people. I think what's a little bit different about what we do compared to other programs around the world. So Scandinavia has a few, Germany, the U.S., other parts of Canada, is that um, a lot of programs focus on de-radicalization. So basically, trying to change people's beliefs. And actually, we have found, and other research has found, that that does not work at all. So confronting people, moralizing, trying to go about it by, teaching critical thinkings or the right facts just does not work at all.
Mm.
So we have a very actually non-judgmental approach. We meet people with curiosity. We're interested in who they are as humans and why they believe what they do, and then we work maybe tangentially on other things, on reducing mental distress, on reducing social isolation, on helping reestablish maybe broken family connections. So yeah, we have this unique model, and modestly, I'd like to say that we have. I think a little bit of success in reaching out to people and connecting with them.
So first, would you mind telling me why doesn't the approach of trying to confront a person's beliefs or to try encourage them to think even more critically or to teach them how to think critically, why doesn't that work? Because that does sort of seem to be, the I think the most it's probably the approach people feel like is the most common sense.
Yeah, I think first in terms of behavioral science and how people come to develop a particular understanding of the world, human beings are not really convinced by facts. Human beings don't select, information based on whether it's true or not, or on whether it's high quality or low quality. They select information in terms of who they get it from, in
Mhm.
terms of who they trust. Uh, so confronting people about deeply held beliefs and really values is something that does not work because it's stigmatizing. And when people feel attacked, they're on fight or flight mode. We're also mammals, and we don't like being under threat. So
Mm.
when people feel attacked, they have no empathy for their interlocutor. Dialogue is not possible anymore.
What did you say about facts? You said humans aren't convinced by facts. Or what did you say about facts?
They're not convinced by facts. They're convinced by emotions. They're convinced by values. They're convinced by trust. And so they select information on its source in terms of who they learn it from. Is it
Mm.
CNN or is it Fox News?
Yeah.
Is it yeah.
And I think that's maybe where we're losing people. Where us as a institution, a media and journalism as an institution are losing people because journalists like to talk about facts.
hmm
So tell me what does work, or what have you found works?
What works is being able to develop a genuine connection, what we call a therapeutic alliance in the
Mm.
field of psychotherapy. And for this, our interlocutors, people we talk to, have to feel respected. Uh, they have to feel like we're genuinely interested in them. They have to feel like we genuinely recognize some fundamental human qualities and also some human exceptionalities. You see, one thing that endlessly fascinates me about people who have gone really, really, really far in the rabbit holes and who are in the process of, organizing, for some revolution or other, but even most passionate conspiracy theorists, is that contrary to portrayal in at least, some part of the media, where we would like to think of them as just, toothless, neck-bearded, people with intellectual deficiencies, is that most of these people, I would say, are of above average intelligence. They're very curious, right? People are drawn to conspiracy theories because they want to solve life's fundamental challenges. They're looking for answers, meaning, purpose, belonging, community, sacrifice. And most, if not all of them, I would say, have altruistic motives.
Hmm.
So they want to protect their loved ones from some perceived threat.
Yeah.
And then inevitably they want to know who their enemies are, and who they can trust, and who they cannot trust. We've done a lot of epidemiological studies on trying to look for different risk factors for who falls, for these kinds of beliefs, and eventually wanting to, act on them. And there's really no single one profile. But again, in adopting quote unquote conspiracy beliefs, there's a sense of agency. So the idea that you can act on the world, you know something that others don't know. So
Hmm.
for people, it's often a kind of it confers a sense, rightly or not, of actually being able to do something about an otherwise unbearable situation.
Like, it's almost as if, as humans, we feel more comfort in believing there is some force, even if it be an evil one, than for something to just be random and totally out of control.
Absolutely. That is absolutely it. And one hallmark of all conspiracy theories is that they're simple, they're
Mm.
catchy. You can explain the gist of it in a sentence or two, and then you can elaborate, but it's very simple. And all of a sudden, you understand the world, you have meaning. You know what to do, you know whom to avoid, you know who the enemies are, you have purpose, you have community. It's really great.
Is there an ever like, just when it comes to certainty, like, is there a kind of like evolutionary path or story there, or reason that we like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the mechanism is relevance. We need to Our mind needs to be able to zoom into whatever is relevant for our fitness and for our survival, and we
Right.
don't want to be wrong. And the other mechanism is also, unfortunately, the negativity bias, is that we need to be a little bit paranoid at baseline. We need to be able to identify threats, and it's better to have false positives, meaning when we think something is a threat and it's not. So we have minds that work like an overactive smoke detector. So we're safer to assume there's fire when there's no fire, because that way it helps us survive. So, of course, paradoxically, being able to be open to nuance, complexity, ambiguity, etc. I mean, this is the path to wisdom, but it takes a very long time. It takes mentorship, guidance, long life to become wise. Most people are not. And in moments of increased threat, in moments when everything that people take for granted as true and good in the world kind of collapses, so a war, a pandemic, any massive change to the world, then we become more paranoid. Then we become more obsessed with, identifying with certainty what the threat is. And this
Mm.
is what we saw with the pandemic.
there's a lot of othering happening now, especially in the United States, whether it's about immigrants or whether it's about Democrats and Republicans or now even Canadians. Um, but but I've always wondered, and I think maybe you're the person who could fill us in a bit more, is like this idea of othering, of making somebody else
Mhm.
the boogeyman or evil.
Yes, there do indeed appear to be, let's say, tribal constraints on human psychology and social psychology. The evolutionary story is again that we're a social species, that we actually need others. We need cooperation in order to survive.
Mm,
But we seem to have great difficulty feeling, altruism and connection with very large groups, and it may be because uh, for the longest part of human evolutionary history, so for really hundreds of thousands of years, we lived in small bands. So
mm,
there's been tons of studies looking at even the amount of actual people that an average human mind can entertain meaningful connections with. Remember things about it's about 200. After that, it becomes a little bit abstract. Um, so societies and religions, did evolve. We did manage to, I guess, extend human cooperation to great tribes. However, we have retained this kind of tribal urge to identify our people, the people we are safe with, the people that'll keep us safe from the external world, from beasts, and but sadly, from other tribes.
mm,
Uh, so it's again in moments of increased uncertainty, like natural disasters, wars, pandemics, that polarization happens more. Then we tend to other people more.
mm.
But what's interesting, the flip side of that coin, is that in-group solidarity also tends to increase. Um, so it's good to be able to find your loved ones and your tribes, and people do get a renewed sense of joy and flourishing and effervescence. But xenophobia increases. Xenophobia, as in the fear of the stranger. It doesn't have to be about race. What
Mm.
we saw it's not just the US, by the way, in North America and most of the Western world, you know, politics has become, the new religion and the new tribe.
I want to just bring it back to earlier. You said just you mentioned that there isn't one specific profile of a person that makes them more likely to fall for a conspiracy theory. But can you talk us a little bit through, like, what have you seen? What are some of the traits or life experiences or station in society that that pushes people to this?
Yeah. So first, let me talk about the uneasy link between psychiatry and conspiracy theories,
Mm.
because what I do not want to convey is that extremism and conspiracy theories are just a form of mental illness, and this
Hmm.
is why people ought to be treated. So in terms of psychopathology, in terms of mental disorders, for example, there's absolutely no one mental disorder that will make people believe in conspiracy theories. Say most schizophrenics are not conspiracy theorists, for example.
Mm.
In terms of personality profile, again, there's a pathway for every personality style. I think there is, however, at least in my experience and in the research that I'm familiar with, a very high prevalence of distress, of mental distress. This does not mean that a mental illness causes the belief. It means that often these are people who, for complicated reasons, have had difficult lives, have experienced significant loss, have gone through trauma, and they're looking for again answers, meaning, purpose, and a community. The problem is also that once, and this is particularly true now in our polarized societies, is that once people adopt a very strong anti-establishment beliefs, it causes ongoing conflicts. So conflicts in the family, conflicts with loved ones, conflict in the workplace, conflicts in schools, conflict with medical institutions, with therapists, thereby perpetuating the exclusion.
Mm.
And this is again, one of the dimensions of this polarized spectrum that we try to address clinically when we work with individuals or when we work with families, is we try to kind of restore those connections, depolarize. This is why a lot of our interventions are not just individual therapy. When we can, family therapy, or involving friends, or involving teachers, or involving local religious leaders, involving as many people in the community as possible, uh, to restore more harmonious connections.
I think I've always tried to have these conversations with people on a very direct and human level, and the fact that I go to these events and actually speak to these people and try not to attack them works quite well. But um, yeah, I think all of us can be a bit guilty at times to say, "Oh, the stuff you believe is just crazy, and therefore you are crazy." And then in 2021, I had a bit of a mental breakdown, and kind of fell into a pit of depression and anxiety. And what I now know is kind of pure OCD, like intrusive thoughts,
Mm.
um, about myself, not about the world around me, but really, you know, reasons I should hate myself and reasons I shouldn't love myself. And really just messed up stuff, really irrational stuff. Um, and it was kind of through that I really started to realize, like, you do not have to be crazy to believe crazy shit,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's what people don't get.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing this. And without knowing anything about your personal life, there's a part of me that want to says, I say, how could you not, have become a little bit crazy and depressed? I mean, these were such extraordinarily difficult times,
Mm.
and it sounds like you were out there again looking for answers and maybe trying to help people. And yeah, it was so incredibly draining, and also so incredibly scary. We're going to be picking up the scraps, from a mental health perspective and from a developmental perspective of the pandemic for a very, very long time.
Mm.
Um, Now, your other point about, yeah, you don't need to be crazy to believe crazy things. Well, to me, as an anthropologist, as an evolutionary anthropologist, also, I say, yeah, absolutely. The thing is that human intelligence is collective intelligence. We're not very good individual problem solvers. Like a chimpanzee is better than a human at like working memory or problem solving tasks. We learn everything from others, everything from how to walk to how to talk, how to feed ourselves. So in order to learn anything, we need to find a community of people we feel safe with, to which we can outsource all of life's solutions. So it's again about trust. And during the pandemic, larger and larger chunks of society lost trust in institutions because they were confused. Uh, and they started believing increasingly, well, some could say crazy stuff.
I talk a lot about how I've been able to connect with some of these folks just by meeting them, but I'm just also realizing I'm on the receiving end of that a lot too. In that I'll go to QAnon events where literally CNN represents the cabal, and I meet people and we talk, and they're surprised. They're like, "Oh, you seem nice.
Yeah,
You seem
you seem like a
normal even."
decent guy.
Yeah.
It's actually very difficult not to have empathy and to maintain hatred for a supposed other when you have them face to face, you have shared food, you have met their family, you have, uh, gone through even difficulties together. It's actually easier to create friendships than to create enemyhood. As an anthropologist, I actually have great faith in humanity's capacity for empathy, compassion, being other regarding, learning from others. Because I said several times today that we're very groupish and we're very tribal, and that's true. And that's particularly true, again, in moments of uncertainty and fear. but it's very, very easy to create solidarity. I mean, look, just sitting on a plane or a bus or at a cafe, with someone, we feel very quickly a sense of closeness, and often we're just motivated to ask them, "Hey, do you mind watching my stuff?" So, uh, what I would say to the liberals who find it very, very difficult to empathize with the QAnoner is well, I would invite them to go and talk to one, uh, and I would say offline, not debate one online. Uh,
Yes.
Debate is great. There is a place for debate. It's fun, but debate is not the same as dialogue, and good dialogue takes listening and curiosity. The way an empathetic conversation on this topic can take place is by not paying too much attention to the beliefs and to the facts, not trying to argue what's wrong, but to get to the personal story. To ask someone, wow, okay, it's interesting. What happened in your life that you came to believe in this? Or why is this important to you? You know, tell me more. Tell me why this is important. Tell me, why this interests you, why this motivates you. Oh, you're scared of such and such thing. What happened in your life?
Honestly, I've had a lot of conversations on this over the years, and this has just really stood out as I could talk all day. So would really hopefully get to chat again, and would love to just pick your brain off microphone at some point to
Let's have a pint in Montreal. Mhm.
absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Sam.